Hello everyone, welcome back to another Preppers Fireside, and today I'm just joined by Brian, Scottish Prepper 73. How you doing, Brian?
All good, mate. Just Brian. Gee whiz. How
Just
passive
Brian.
aggressive was that?
You just
Thanks
take it
very
the
much.
negative way. You take it the negative way. With a car, it's fine. It's fine. No, Dave's away on personal business, so he couldn't join us today. So it's just the two of us you've got. And unfortunately for everybody in the chat, this stream is not monetized because every time we talk about the subjects we're going to talk about, YouTube throws a fit. So I've decided not to monetize it. So which means the gloves are off for Brian. So I apologize right now for anything he says that may offend. I'll just get that out. In the
How
chat,
rude.
we've just started. We have 91 people watching. I mean, when we first started the Fireside, we were getting like 10 or 12 people in, and we were buzzing with it. It's amazing, the support. It really is. Loads of people in the chat. I can't read you all out because you've been in there since 8:30, just using it as a chat room. But Miss Worm is in there, and Hawkins is in there, two of our moderators. So they'll keep you right if you're talking about subjects that you shouldn't be or anything like that. Your comments may get deleted. If you have any questions during this, please put it in block capitals so I see it. Don't just put it in block capitals as a statement, only for questions, please. Or you've got the option to use the super chat as well, which stars it for me, which Hawkins has abused instantly. He's instantly abused the super chat because he knows I have to put it on screen and it says Pepsi Max. Get out, get out. But good to see everyone. Great, it's great support, isn't it, Brian? Like, I just want to say, since the start of the Fireside, where it was only a few of us, it's done really well. To be fair,
We've been really lucky, and there's a core group every week, and it's a big ask on a Sunday because people are trying to get kids ready for school. They're trying to get their work clothes sorted out, get ready for the week. So to spend an hour out of or even 2 hours in some cases,
yeah,
you get good numbers, and
yeah.
the comments. We've not really had a lot of troll issues. That was another good thing. We've not had a troll problem. We've had the odd toss spot now and again that get flicked to the side, but to be honest, it's not an issue we have.
Oh, we've had some comedy moments with that. Anyway, let's get to the actual subject matter, which is obviously the big, clickbaity title was, is SHTF happening now? Before we talk about right now, today is a 5-year anniversary. And it's going to make you all feel old because it doesn't feel like that long ago to me. It's exactly 5 years ago since lockdown, Brian. 5 years since they did the lockdown. Did you enjoy that time?
Not really, mate. First 2 years were fine. I never caught it. Took the jag and then had 7 months off work. So,
well, there you go. There you go. I'm just going to flick this over a quick. Oh, take Brian off by accident. Flick this over a quick second because BBC shared a load of lockdown images, like the highlights of lockdown. And obviously, it was just Boris posing and stuff like that. So I wanted to do my own little tribute to lockdown and just pull up a few pictures that reminds us of that time, like some of the awesome improvised masks as we see there. That one's a special. I honestly, I think she's got a pickle up her nose as well. And most of this is before the AI pictures, so you just know it's just nutters. That one, and then
like
everyone ended up as a prepper because everyone got the toilet paper and ended up sat in a house like this king. And I enjoyed my lockdown as well. This is me through lockdown with my friends. Even had fancy dress. Anyone guess what I'm going dressed as there?
I was going to say a fanny pad, but I'm way out.
Notice the thug life tattoo. Yeah, so a great lockdown, loads of good times, and I actually look back on it fondly because of that reason. But yeah, absolutely insane times. 5 years on, we're still not allowed to talk about it on YouTube, so that's us demonetized. Right, let's go first to Heathrow. Actually, let's change it back to the Prepper Fireside. Whoop, there we go. Let's go to Heathrow, Brian. Transformer with 25,000 litres of cooling oil, fully alight, knocking out 67,000 homes of power. And then a few days later, they were still with 5,000 without power. How's this happened? Is this how brittle our system is? Is this like just wear and tear? Because obviously they put a counter-terror probe up straight away, and there's talks of Russian sabotage and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on this? Could this just be aging infrastructure?
It could be, or it could be a state-sponsored attack. Us, Joe Public, we'll never know either way. Because if it was, it's not in our government's interest to tell us, because the people will then be quite rightly clamouring for action of some sort, and they're not in the position to do it. So even if it is that, we'll never know about it unless there's a leak. But regardless of that, the infrastructure is creaking. These substations that you've probably seen pictures of them. I mean, they've got a single perimeter fence around most of them.
Yeah.
But if you look about them all over the country, some are larger than others, but most of them don't even have CCTV. At the worst, this is giving the wrong people the right idea, because for relatively low impact, and I'm not going to make suggestions, but it doesn't take a Mensa candidate to see that this has had a huge impact, a huge cost, and a lot of disruption for minimal risk to nefarious people, if that was the case.
Yeah. And I mean, what? There's no backup generators at Heathrow. There's no diesel generators, which is absolutely insane. Like little rustic airports in the middle of the outback have their own backup diesel generators.
I would argue the point that there's no backup power. There'll be UPSs for the radar systems, telemetry, radios, that kind of stuff, for the tower alone, so they can at least see planes and their ILS systems and all the rest of it. There'll be backup power for that. There must be, because planes didn't start dropping out the sky, right? But what there wasn't was enough backup power to keep the terminals running. So the shops going, the restaurants, the refrigerators going, all that kind of good stuff. So that wasn't there. But they must have had backup power for the tower and stuff. They must have.
Yeah, but it's apparently some sort of like it's all part of this net zero thing, right? Why they've got rid of these diesel generators so they can get their carbon emissions down. It's insanity, right?
It'll be the same engine. It just runs on a different, slightly different fuel source. So I used to look at a site that got 10 of these things put in, and they got a grant from the government, turned them on, ran them once, got the money. They've never ran since, and that was 9 years ago.
Yeah, so it's like untested. But they said apparently that what I'm hearing is they had diesel backup generators and they were removed as part of the net zero targets. So they'll
have replaced them with something.
Yeah, but something inadequate.
It depends what you're trying to. I mean, in an ideal world, they would have had enough capacity to keep the whole terminal up and running. But
go on, sorry. Suburban Preppers said, as much as I take the news with a pinch of salt, allegedly the diesel backup generators were scrapped as part of the net zero push.
I think that's a slight play on words that they've put out there. They probably scrapped older diesel generating sets and put in a more eco-friendly type.
Right.
I would take a lot of convincing that there was no backup generators at all. In fact, I downright would say it's absolute bollocks. I think somebody's just latched onto the fact that the diesel generator sets were flung out, but they must have been replaced with something. Or the tower, you'd had somebody on by now 3 days later saying the tower, all the radar systems went black. They couldn't talk to anybody. That never happened. They were able to divert planes and talk to the planes, so they must have had backup power.
Yeah, well, they must have. They must, even if it's battery powered for communications alone, they'll have had something just to turn people away and what have you. So yeah, they would have had something like that. But it's madness, and lots of stuff going around. The thing for me is, surely by now they'd have said, "Oh, it started because of this. Oh, it was a wiring fault." Because they could. When a house burns down, it's the same day, if not the next day, they're telling you the cause of the fire. The fact that they've launched a counter-terror probe into it and they've not come out and told us how it happened yet, is that suspicious?
They're never going to tell you. But what people need to try and think about is, if you imagine a 50-gallon drum right? Full of oil, sitting on top of the transformer. That's more or less what you're looking at. I mean, the quantity will vary from size to size, but basically you've got a large cylinder full of oil. Now, whether there was a problem and that leaked and exploded or was punctured, you would have a catastrophic ejection of flammable material all over the site and it went whoosh. If somebody went past it and shot it with a rifle and punctured and did it, apart from the puncture point, you wouldn't know. And the same as if somebody threw a chemical over it or something caused a fire and the resultant explosion, it'd be very, very hard to pin it down, I would think.
Yeah.
But even if they did, I don't think they'll tell us, Mike. What do you think?
I think, well, they've got to tell us something, right? But whether that's going to be a made up or faulty wiring or there was a valve that was broken or something like, they've got to tell us something. There's too many people sat there waiting for it, right? So it's what the narrative's going to be. But does the narrative play well for Starmer if it was related to the Russians? Does it paint him in a better light? Does it let him take the gloves off more?
We don't have many gloves to take off, mate, to be honest.
No. Yeah.
The military has been ran down to a shell.
Yeah.
I mean, what gloves have we got? We're now down to mittens instead of 16-ounce boxing gloves as a country. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, but we're British. We can go bare knuckle. It's fine.
It's slightly disappointing, but I mean, even let's say the best example I can provide is when the guys who were proven to be Soviet agents, not even people that they'd given a bung to do it, right? They actually proved it was Soviet agents that did the Novichok thing in the Salisbury incident.
Yeah.
We never did anything. Nothing happened. They expelled a few diplomats.
Sanctioned, took a bit of money. You know, it's the usual, isn't it? Yeah.
It was bollocks. There was no big pushback. I mean, they potentially could have killed hundreds of people.
Yeah.
We never did anything.
No, and so it'll be interesting to see if they do release anything for that. We'll go on to the whole Russia side of it shortly when we look at the Ukraine situation. Just going to the comments. Mohammed said, can't believe COVID was 5 years ago whilst we were kept away from seeing our loved ones, the cons and the other politicians were partying. Yeah, I don't think that was party based. I think that was just all of them because, it was an exercise of control in theory, allegedly.
Do you not think people at the start were nicer though? Like say when it was we were working, myself and my wife were working right through it. But when we weren't working at the weekend, people were social distancing. They were taking short walks. It was just coming into the summer, spring season. And people were that glad to see one another and get out of the house. And they were just generally nicer.
Yeah. It was, honestly, it was, now that I look back at it, you hated it at the time. It wasn't great for my mental health. But there was moments in it that was like, this would have never happened any other way, sort of thing. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a fate thing, and it changed the way I thought about stuff. And it probably set a lot of preppers on the path as well. So there's silver linings, definitely. But, maybe we need a lockdown every 10 years just to get people to be a bit nicer. that's the trick. CJ says the UK will never rise again against everything happening when you consider what's already happened and people basically have forgotten. Yeah, unfortunately, there is a body of people that will stand up, protest, stuff like that, but it'll never. We take everything in the UK, don't we? We just take everything for some reason.
The same government that was encouraging you to clap on a Thursday evening for the NHS and key workers was the same one that demonised the healthcare professionals when they wanted a wage rise. These terrible people in this caring profession, they've still got bills to pay, asshole, and haven't had a wage rise in like 9 years, and they were getting dragged through the papers as scumbags and greedy people. Same government. Short memory.
Yeah, very short memory. And people eat it up, though. That's the problem. People eat it up. Anonymity, I'm going to say it right one day, but him. Take out 9 substations in the US and the whole country goes down. Is that normal? Is 67,000 homes blacking out off one substation? Is that normal? Or is it because it's such a concentrated area around there?
Think of it as a link. right? You're taking out links in the infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from the transmission lines to a link, and if you take out enough links, you can't transmit the power and you can't switch it about. So that's basically what's happening. In America a couple of years ago, and it wasn't that well publicized, there was people shooting up basically these things with 50 caliber sniper rifles at range and blowing the substations, and they never found out who it was.
Mm-hmm.
Test run or just people being assholes, but there was a few of them got hit.
Yeah.
Same effect.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot. I mean, how many of these substations are over the country? Do we know? Do you know?
There's maps. Hawkins shared one the other day, but you'll have driven past them. If you look out your left or right in the car, you'll see them. They'll be in a field or outside a town, or smaller substations will be sitting within a terraced row. Shit, there's one 400 yards from my house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, leave it alone. No sabotage, Brian. No sabotage. Just getting to the bottom of the comments here before we move on. I read that the substation was already running at 106% of capacity, says Kelly I. I mean, could that contribute? Could it overuse? Could that have triggered it, do you think?
Well, bear in mind the oil's purpose is for cooling. So if it's been ran, and bear in mind, I don't know how old that particular station was. I don't know how it'd been maintained. But if you're running something above its rated capacity for too long or at all, there'll be a factor of safety. With anything in engineering, there's always a factor of safety. So even though it's running at 106%, it'll be rated for a lot higher than that. But it's still not a good idea to run it above its rated capacity for any length of time.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
Heathrow is a good example of why you should sort your own supplies out pronto. Yes, out of them 67,000, I wonder how many were preppers and how many were ready for that. That'll be interesting statistic if we could find out. Novichok was a UK false flag, says Nelly on the land. There you go.
I'll tell you why that's not true. A friend of mine, his former son-in-law, was the paramedic whose car got taken away and crushed. Right. So I know for a fact that actually happened. So my friend's former son-in-law was in the MERT team. He was a paramedic in Afghan. And when he came back, he joined the air ambulance, and he was one of their ambulance crews that went out. So they came to his house, took his car away, crushed it, and burnt all his clothes and everything. So it was not fake.
I mean, if it was, that's some lengths to go to make it look real. There's plenty of Russian agents in the UK, no doubts. What's your thoughts on that, though, in general? I'm going to scroll to the bottom really quickly. Sorry if I miss anything. Don't forget, guys. Capitals for questions or super chat is the option there. There's 162 of you. I'm never going to keep up with the chat fully. What's your thoughts on the whole potential Russian agents being in the UK, a sabotage-based war? Because I mean, we're sanctioning them, right? That's all we're doing at the moment. We've seizing their assets. This £2.2 billion loan that we've just approved to Ukraine is being funded by seized Russian assets in this country. So we're doing our bit.
But we know they're doing it. We know they're doing it. They've been caught doing it already. There was the DHL thing where they were setting off incendiary bombs, but the only reason that they caught them was because it went off before the planes were in the air. So they've already targeted freight carrying aircraft. They've already been setting shopping malls in Poland and stuff and other places. There's been 63 proven attacks in the last 12 months on infrastructure and cyber attacks, state-sponsored. But what they're doing is doing proxies. They'll go into the dark web and they'll get an arsehole and say, right, here you go, here's 10 grand, set fire to this. So it's hybrid warfare, and they're better at it.
Yeah. Miss Worm says, has anyone ever seen Brian's legs? He's actually 50% generator. There's a... That didn't even look like yours. That looked like a foot coming in from a really wrong angle.
Do you know, that's my
Brian
dedication to the channel. I killed a hobo and kept his legs there just in the off chance I get challenged.
Brian did not kill a hobo. Please don't go and raid his house. Don't forget the disclaimer.
Please don't. It was a joke.
disclaimer is running across the bottom, don't forget. Polonium makes a really good point. If Heathrow was caused by lack of maintenance to its power station, just think what sort of state your local one is in. Because, I mean, Heathrow's going to be a priority, right?
Well, it's not a power station. So what you've basically got is...
maintenance of that kind of facility, I think he means in general.
Lots of copper windings and some large oil baths for cooling purposes and some recirculation pumps. And then what they should have is they'll generally go around it with thermal cameras and look for heat spots, which would indicate high resistance because you'll get loose fixtures and fixtures.
Yeah.
But that's basically it.
Yeah. What if it wasn't Russia? Could be, absolutely, but could be terrorism from Middle East. Yeah, I mean, there's a long list, right? If it does come down to a terror probe and it is some sort of sabotage, that's not necessarily instant. That is Russia. It could be a long list of people, I'm sure.
But even if it was an accident, lack of maintenance, terrorism, for us tonight talking about it, it makes no difference other than the fact that if we were prepped, if you had your power banks, your candles, that kind of thing, you're fine, which is why we're talking about it now. So although it does matter who did it, because it could point to larger problems further down the line, the reality for you and me is you've got no power, you can't cook your kids' dinner, you can't get a laptop charged for work. So that's why we prep.
Yeah. You've got to look at the takeaways from that as preppers and how you would cope in that situation. Because, I mean, a power cut to that scale is, people don't think about, it's traffic lights, it's stuff like that. The roads are going to be chaos and stuff like that. So do you really want to take the kids into school when it's like that? You've got to prioritize what you're doing at that time.
Even personal safety, Mike, silly things like you've got a dog. Would you let the wife take it outside for a walk at night time? There's no street lights. Yeah. So then what do? Do you go with her and you leave the kids sitting in the dark with some candles? It's stupid shit like that you don't think about.
No, that's it. Yeah. Well, I don't have a dog. I'm all right. For this reason, I'm prepped. Right. Let's quickly talk about the UK before we go on to the YouTube hates us war topic. The civil service has been told to cut £2 billion from its budget. And Rachel from Accounts has told Sunday Morning TV with Trevor Phillips that 10,000 jobs are going to be slashed. 10,000 civil service jobs. That's a guaranteed job for life when you get into civil service. You wouldn't expect that cut. But 10,000 more to the unemployed. Also, the news is out that a study has been done by the Joseph Roundtree Foundation that says frozen tax thresholds, rising mortgage and rent costs, and falling real earnings are predicted to take a toll on living standards in Britain. And by 2030, we could all be £1,400 a year worse off. And obviously, Rachel Reeves has completely rejected this and said we're going to be £1,400 a year better off by April, apparently. Cost of living, we're getting absolutely stung on this one. Are we getting back to typical Labour credit card spending here now then?
Problem is the credit card's full.
Yeah, it's maxed.
And we enjoyed the peace dividend of the 90s and we're able to slash military spending and take money and prioritise it for other things. But we've got a social welfare fund that's bloated. We want to be seen as the good guys and we're putting people up in hotels that shouldn't be here. We're spending money we don't have on things that we shouldn't be spending it on. It's really that simple. So rather than hacking and slashing at civil service jobs, it probably is a bloated system, but you've got to look at where the savings need to be made. You don't just do it for headline grabs. And it's like Trump, I'm going to shut this whole department and pay all these people off. Well, actually, they're in charge of all the nuclear weapons. Oh, shit, let's hire them back on again. You've got to do it in the right way. Yeah, there'll be savings to be made in middle management bullshit jobs and positions for your friend Phil down the road. Yeah, but that's not where our problems are. We've got a social welfare fund that's bloated to the tits. Excuse the language.
Yeah. I mean, is this... I don't know whether to be bothered by this or not. Is this expected now, the fact that we've got to spend this extra on defence? Do we expect to see more of this kind of thing now?
The money's got to come from somewhere. Europe's already said they've invested this, I think it's like 150 billion to start with, on a fund that they can dip into in loans to bolster European defence. We're not going to get any.
But
so we've got to do it on our own.
Are we not pulling it from the wrong places though? YouTube red flags again, demonetized galore. It's a good job I didn't monetize it, but 5,000 people have come across on crossings already this year. We're paying hundreds of millions of pounds out to hotels to house people that are coming in. Are we not cutting the funds from the wrong place? You're trying to save money. Suddenly you're axing 10,000 or job real allocations, as Kelly I says, and 10,000 compo packages, as Band again says. Is that we're not trying to save from the wrong place here?
But you can't say anything like that though, because you'll have somebody with blue hair sticking himself to the road, eating their real meat sausages, telling you that you're racist or a bigot or something. I'm not a racist, I'm not a bigot, but stupid ideas are stupid ideas, and I keep saying it's like the Emperor's new clothes. Nobody wants to say, look, he's got no strides on. This is stupid. That what we're doing is inherently stupid and dangerous, and it needs to be looked at seriously without any of the fluffy gloves on, and just go, look, guys, this isn't working. This can't go on. We've got a security problem, and we've got a potential war problem coming. The stupid shit and the fluffy jammies has got to stop.
But it's not.
That's not racist.
There's got to be a tipping point, right? I mean, in general, we're overwhelmed. Our services are overwhelmed. Fire service, police service, NHS, everything's overwhelmed. And the more countries that are involved in wars and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, asylum seekers, it's going to happen if wars are going on. But the more people we take in general, the more strain is going to be on that service, right? So surely more money needs to go into these things, not less.
If we don't waste money on crap, and I don't mean crap in a derogatory term, I'm just generalising it before I get jumped on for that. If we spend the money on the right way and the right people, we shouldn't have any problems. We're an affluent country. We shouldn't have people sleeping in cardboard boxes. We shouldn't have ex-servicemen sitting in a doorway and an old sleeping bag. This should not be happening in this day and age.
Yeah.
But by the same token, we shouldn't have somebody that's 40 saying they're 15 going to school and living in a hotel, right?
Yeah.
That's no anything but a bad call.
Yeah. I'm just looking through some of the comments here. Mohammed says living standards dropping, job cuts, NHS dying, but yes, the government decides to somehow give funding for the war in Ukraine and those coming into the UK illegally. And yeah, he's fully right. It's like, we've got the people taking the brunt and paying this bill are me and you, and that's nothing to do with our status. I'd like to say middle-aged still, or anything, middle-aged white male kind of thing. It's not anything like that. It's just working people in general, right? It's paid by probably a lot of people that are in our chat, 181 people in here at the moment. But a lot of people here are going to be fronting the bill, right? Yet we're still sending out foreign aid, yet we're still sending out all this stuff. And, there's money still going out that way, and we're taking the bill for it.
I hate to burst people's bubbles, but when Rachel Reeves does our emergency budget later this week, anybody that doesn't think we're getting a tax rise is in for a shock.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
We're getting our pants pulled down, and it's the cold finger with no lube. I'm sorry, it's happening.
Just one finger.
I'm hoping for a pinky, mate.
See, this one always gets me. Tax the rich, wealth like billionaires rather than the poor. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong. In theory, yes, you'd love that. But the rich already contribute more because essentially they are rich. If we all paid 20% across the board, just as a random figure, if he's earning 10 million and you're earning 10,000, guess what? He's putting 20% of 10 million in. He's still paying more. There's no point taxing them more because you know what? We're already taxing people to the point where companies are leaving. When you're talking about banking institutions leaving the UK, you know that it's a bad time. If you start saying tax the rich more, and if she does that in that budget, we're going to see closures of businesses massive. The chances of
Already
getting
seen that with him.
Woolworths back are slim to nil.
When she did the thing with the national insurance, which to this day I'll never understand the logic with that, there was a noticeable impact on businesses, investment and jobs straight away.
Mm-hmm.
I get the logic. People are billionaires, they've got everything, and there's people sleeping in streets. In an ideal world, there'll be an equal distribution of wealth, right? We don't live in that world. And that is not going to happen as much as we all want to see it. If you don't want the multi-millionaires to bring their company here, right, they'll move it somewhere else. So we've got a simple choice. We can either let them continue to not work the system, but follow the rules that mean the more money you've got, the more money you get to keep. But ultimately, they're bringing jobs and employment in for people that don't have a job or don't have employment, right? And they're starting companies. If we push them out, then we've got a problem, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the poor get poorer if there's no rich here to build the businesses, to employ you, to earn the money. It's just very simple, you know. Kelly's Eye says nationalise essential services, i.e. water, power, gas. The thing is, they could have done, they could do, but there's more money in them, in kickbacks and tenders and stuff like that, to keep this private, right? Is this GB Energy? It's not nationalisation, right? That's just another option that's going to be like, because British Gas was British Gas, that's why it's called that.
Fun
and
fact,
they could control
GB Energy were in the news.
Go on.
Did you see that?
No, go on.
They're paying off people.
What do you mean?
The company that's going to manage and invest in the energy networks and everything else, and everything's going to be great. They were in the paper the other day. They're paying off so many hundred people. So it's working well already.
Yeah, superb, excellent. But would you think? Sorry, just stop for a second because it's at the bottom there. Thank you, Robert McNamara, for a $5. I assume it's a super sticker. I can't see anything. It's blank on my screen, but much appreciated for the donation. It does really help. And we will interrupt ourselves for that. And that's, by scrolling down, I've lost where I was at. But yeah, would nationalising it drop our prices massively, or would it just be lining their pockets more?
It'll only work if you put professional people without a vested interest in shafting you in charge. And we've never really managed to do that, even for the 60s right through. Because when you had British Steel, they were going in strike because Cubicle 2 had no toilet roll in it. The coal industry, the shipping industry, it was mismanaged, fundamentally mismanaged. If we could solve that, I'm all for it. But none of the water companies, Thames Water, are looking for billions in bailouts just now. And the services, it was privatised, it's been run into the ground, directors' dividends taken out, and the service is shit for people. So if we buy that back, as in you and me, because it's your money and my money as taxpayers, we're going to need guarantees, because there's no point buying it out now, fixing the infrastructure, spending billions and billions of pounds on doing it, and then what? We get a change of government further down the line, and they decide to sell it because one of their pals is on the cricket club. It needs to be enshrined in the law. We keep it.
Yeah, this is the problem, isn't it? In 4 years' time or whatever, it can all change. So it's insane. So it's interesting. Do you think that would be on the cards? Do you think nationalisation of services like that, they'd even consider that? Because it does feel like something that they would say, they would do. It felt almost like what GB Energy was trying to be at first.
I think it's a good idea in principle, but the devil would be in the detail. And apart from that, where's the money coming from?
Magic money pots, credit cards.
Because somebody's chopped down the money tree, I think.
Yeah, well, all they need to do is create a £22 billion black hole and they can spend all that. It's fine. If I get arrested for a tweet, could I get refugee status in America? I'm not sure banned again, but if you put it into practice, let me know how that works. I'd be very interested in the results. The US, we shouldn't have 22 veterans committing suicide every day. I bet it's the same in the UK. It is a direct attack on the middle class, making them pay for their own demise. Unfortunately, you're right. We treat our veterans nowhere near to what we should. Hence the reason my charity thing coming up is for Help for Heroes, which are a great charity for that. It's a sad that it has to be a private charity that looks after our veterans, right? It's sad times like that. But yeah, that's why I'm doing that for. So thank you for your comment there, much appreciated. Kelly's eye said flat tax for everyone and everything.
Oh, yes, please.
It seems logical, doesn't it? It does. It really does, because the higher you earn, I mean, I got at one point was close to the tipping bracket of the higher thing. And well, I did actually go over it because I was self-employed and working in a good job. So I kind of went over it for a percentage of it. But the more you earn, like if I kept going on that track that I was on originally, I'd be looking at emigrating, because that I'll get that same pay somewhere else in the world and not get taxed to bits on it.
Well, I pay 42% tax. I think it might even be 43 over a certain point.
Yeah.
And I had this call it a discussion with somebody about this before. Yeah, you should pay more tax the more you earn. I was like, well, hang on a minute. That's not entirely fair. So I spend 5 years doing an apprenticeship. I spend 9 years at college and uni. I try and better myself by making sacrifices, investing in education. And it might take me 20 years to get the job that I've got now, which it pretty much did. So I have to be penalised. And somebody might decide that they don't have any aspirations, or they can't get the same opportunity, or don't take the same opportunities. So they don't have the same salary. So I have to be penalised for that. How does that work? Where's the incentive to try and better yourself or improve things for your family if you're going to get screwed over?
Exactly. I mean, I've been at a job where I saw somebody reject a pay rise because it just wasn't worth it for them. Because if they stayed on the lower bracket, they could still do the overtime and they could still end up earning more than they would getting this pay rise and pushing them into the bracket. It's it's madness for the hours that because he'd had to commit more hours. And the more hours he committed, it took away from the other stuff he was doing. So it just wasn't worth it in the end.
In theory, if I work a Sunday, it's double time. But after tax and national insurance, it's single time.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So you here's your double time, and here's your 50% cut because of all your tax and all your national insurance. So are you going to volunteer for more overtime? Not a chance. Brian, I got the finger with no lube in hospital once. It was nil by mouth and the painkillers had to go in somewhere. Oversharing.
Some places charge extra for that sort of shit. Did they call you back after it?
Yeah, did you at least get dinner bought? I don't know. No, you don't want dinner bought, not with hospital food. Paying nearly $500 a month for tax and national insurance, all for it to be wasted by the government. As Ice Cube once said, getting effed with no Vaseline. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Good.
I won't tell you what my tax bill was for last month then. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's across the board. Regardless, it's not just tax on your wage, right? Let's. You've got a can of Pepsi in your hand. What a shocker! But that can of Pepsi, yeah. To obtain that can of Pepsi, you've had to work. You've been taxed on what you've earned, right? Then you've had to get in the car to go to the shop, which you pay road tax for, which you pay tax on your fuel for, which you pay tax on the actual purchase of the vehicle for. You get to the shop, you buy your shopping. Guess what? There's tax on that, on the cost of the Pepsi as well. And when it actually comes out of your body and it goes into the waste of the water system and all that to get away, you're paying your council tax to get rid of that waste. So you've been taxed about 7 times on that can of Pepsi.
And now with the way the pensions are going for your state pension, that's going to push into the taxable threshold unless they raise it.
Yeah. It's insanity. We're going to have to do a live special when this budget comes out just to all sit here and have a rant about it. I'm going to quickly scroll down the page. I am looking for capitals when I can. Wage tax, food tax, fuel tax, soon to be air you breathe tax, says Camping Gigs. Well, they're talking about chimney tax, aren't they? So heating yourself is going to cost even more if you've got a log burner. We don't have log burners, me and Brian, because we're not real preppers, so it's fine.
Not real preppers, mate. Scumbags.
Armchair preppers. What do you reckon the chances of a national strike? Unfortunately, yeah, I think Brian's right. The cost of living has got everyone too scared to take action. There's not enough union support. There's not enough camaraderie amongst communities. When the miners were on strike, all the miners' families were pitching in to help feed other families and stuff like that. And they were all, get on board with it. We just haven't got that anymore. Yeah, a strike now would last about a week or two and everyone would be on their ass. They'd have to go back. So
I don't mean this to be a bad thing or say it's a negative, but we've got a slightly selfish society. And I'm being generous when I say slightly. In the 80s, I stayed in a mining village. And although my family wasn't involved in the mines, most of the kids in my class at school, their families were down the pits. And the soup kitchen was the miners' welfare hall. And there was a social cohesion. There was a lot of camaraderie, a team spirit, everybody pulling in the same direction. Most people don't know their neighbours anymore.
Yeah. Nelly says, FFS, hit the thumbs up. Come on, guys, hit the like. Let's get at least 100 likes. Got 168 people in here. I've no idea how many we've got at the moment. Somebody let me know in the chat. One more comment and then... No, likes. I mean, likes. Survivor 60. Oh, lucky number. Leave it there. Don't hit like. Survivor 198. I was a Royal Engineer for 6 years. Thank you for your service. Luckily, didn't have the PTSD, the mental health issues, but I've lost friends. Same. We are now potentially trying to conscript young lads to fight against the Russians. We'll talk about that shortly. We're going to go on to that now. I'll just start a couple of these that have flagged up. Okay, right. So let's go on to that now, and really kick the YouTube people. Russia, Ukraine, Zelensky, Putin, Trump, Starmer, go. So peace talks are happening-ish, maybe, possibly, the odd phone call. Not sure what's going on, but Russia has launched, and so has Ukraine, a series of drone strikes. The attacks recently, in the last couple of days, were against Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv, Odessa, Donetsk regions, as well as Kiev, the capital. I did well to read all them with my reading skills. Does he want peace? Right, Brian? I mean, it seems like he's put this list of demands up that instantly Ukraine said these are ridiculous. He's actually come out today or yesterday saying they need to stop making ridiculous demands. And from what I gather, he wants to keep all the regions he's got so far, land-wise, have a DMZ within that, beyond that, before it hits Ukraine, and stop NATO spread eastwards, and no more aid for Ukraine. I mean, why that would be relevant, I'm not sure. If the peace talks have done and you've got a DMZ, why can nobody help Ukraine? Why can't they join NATO? Does he want peace away? Is this achievable with the demands that are out there at the moment?
He can get anything he wants at the moment. But he can get anything he wants. The largest, I was going to say former member of NATO, the largest country that's still a member of NATO, the guy that's in charge has lost his mind. He's lost his fucking marbles. Funny thing happened when Zelensky had his spat on the White House, and everybody's got different opinions on it, on who was right and who was wrong. But right after that, when they lost all their intel support, the Russians miraculously knew where all the Ukrainian troop positions were. And they were more or less pushed out of Russia within a week, right? Yeah. Although there's arguments over how far they've been pushed, but essentially the weapon shipments stopped, the intel stopped, and the Russians suddenly got really good targeting information on where the Ukrainian troop distribution was. Areas that they had held, even against the North Koreans and all the other troops that had been pushed against them for over a year, and within a week they were pushed back. I smell a rat, right? We're not talking about a peace process. We're talking about a division of assets that's been carved up by Trump and Putin. all the negotiating was kiboshed as soon as he started to blame the Ukrainians right at the start.
Mhm.
Whether they're to blame or not, and there's always an element of blame on all sides, but he sold them down the river.
Yeah.
And the NATO talks about how we're going to help and do this, that, and the next thing.
Mhm.
They all died on their arse. There was no agreement on this huge funding that we're going to give to them.
No.
It's all talk.
I just mentioned to people in the chat, 160 odd of you still in here. Our opinions are our own. Yeah, we're entitled to them as you're entitled to yours. Okay, we're not pushing an agenda from either side. I'm not saying who started it and who's right and who's wrong. The whole thing's wrong. We don't want to see people dying. Simple as that. We're just assessing what we read and what we see and giving our personal opinion on it. So take that as you will. Please don't get offended. You're welcome to turn off. Anonymity. I said it right. Woo! Ukraine struck first, hitting the gas pipeline. Yeah, I believe so. I mean, there's no innocent parties here. It's tit for tat at the moment, still going on.
They blew the gas line. I don't disagree with that. That's more or less been proven. But they blew it after they'd been hit. They didn't blow it and then Russia invaded.
Mm-hmm.
The argument that you were getting, Putin's argument at the start was they could marshal troops on their side of the border because that was their sovereign country. But then said, but Ukraine can't. So how does that work? You can't have an advance in other countries coming near their border, not even in Ukraine, near their border, but they can put troops on their side of the border because that's their land. Yeah, it totally is their land and they can do that, but nobody else is allowed to deploy troops on their land.
Yeah.
Slight issue with the logic there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, regardless of who the logic there, and he doesn't want the eastward expansion. I mean, I don't think anyone should be denied from joining NATO, and I know that the argument will be that they couldn't, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to adhere to the conditions. So that's up to them. But the question's got to be, does he want an end? Because this has got to boil round to where this affects us at the end of the day, right? So that's what it all boils down to. That's what we talk about, why we're prepping and stuff like that. Now, Starmer has apparently got a 4-point plan, which he said, in his politician way, that wasn't really a plan, but it was just roughly 4 points. Basically being one, to continue military aid and increase sanctions and the £2.2 billion loan of Russian assets, right? So all of them instantly, that's just point one, but all of them go against what Russia's demands are, complete opposites. Number two, lasting peace must include Ukraine at the table for negotiations. That has been written off practically. It's all been third-partied by Trump and stuff like that, so that's gone. So number two's out the window. Number three, even after peace deal, we will continue to boost defenses for them, he said. So he's basically saying if they agree to this, we're still going to give them military and boost their defenses, which again goes against Russia. Why would he agree to that? And the last one is the coalition to help defend Ukraine to guarantee the peace. Now, which is the scary one, because at this point, it's not clear what that step would actually look like. The options floated have ranged from 30,000 strong reassurance European force, all the way up to a former British Army head estimated it would require 100,000 troops, what we're saying 30,000 to be for. So it's not quite sure what that's about. Random Warrior, there it is. Whoosh. Super sticker, £10. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. We can't put ads revenue on this stream, so that is really, really appreciated. So Starmer's plan, everything he said on that, it just feels like how could any of that be possibly implemented, Brian, if it goes against every single condition that Putin said?
In my humble opinion, agree or disagree, what I suspect is going to happen is Russia and the US will agree terms. Ukraine will be told what the terms are, and they will be forced to agree with them. Mm-hmm. NATO Europe, including us, has largely been dismissed, right? We're making all the right noises, but ultimately we don't do anything. We're not cohesive enough, and they've got too many rats in the nest. Orban and Hungary and his ilk that are vetoing things right, left, and centre. If I had my way, I'd kick him right out the fucking door. But anyway, that aside, All we're doing, the deal is done. The Ukraine war will be over this year, I think, one way or another, and the peace will be imposed on them. There'll be Luhansk and Donetsk, I think, will be given, along with Crimea, and peace will be forced on Ukraine. Whether they want to accept it or not, they will be put in such an untenable position that it'll be forced on them. That's my thoughts on how it'll go. And I don't think, for all these noises that he's making about troops on the ground, at the back here, he always says that they want security guarantees from the US. Yeah, because we don't have the Moxie and the conventional forces and the big brother backup to pull it off on our own. 30,000 troops on the ground, they lose more than that in a month in Ukraine now. And that would be a push for the British Army to put combat troops, that many boots on the ground. I mean, actual guns on trenches pointing out. We would struggle.
We couldn't. We couldn't do that and defend our nation as it stands right now. Simple as. We just couldn't. Without conscription and stuff like that, right? Let's quickly go to the comments because I've got a load starred and I'm going to lose track of absolutely everything. I'll leave Chris's one till after because it's off topic. Sharon says, put two leaders in a ring and let them fight it out. Sounds good to me, you know. What do you think of Professor David Bett's Civil War predictions? I've not seen them.
I don't know. Them? I'm sorry.
No, I don't know that one. I will look into it though. Thank you for that one. We've had lots of. I think actually I did see it. I'm telling a lie. I did see some of that, but we'll talk about that briefly. But it's difficult subject to broach a civil war in this country because it could be tentative of who it starts between. Research, he says. Sorry, don't shout at me. Ukraine has no land borders, still legally part of Russia. Interesting.
How?
Interesting.
How?
Yeah, I'd like to. I will research that. I will take your advice and I will research that after this. The French public are getting survival manuals sent to them. Will British public get one as well? That's a good question.
You've had it,
Brian. Well, we've not had manuals, have we? We've had the moment of spotlight for the prepping world on Good Morning Television, terribly represented by a shop that can't get orders out on time.
You've had it as much as the. Let's call it an eco-friendly version. They've not actually printed out the booklets because they'll be trying to save the environment. What you've had is a bollocks, watered down 72 hours, although they're not even called it 72 hours now. Correct me if I'm wrong. On what you should have, which is not sufficient, as we've spoke about before.
They changed it from 3 days initially when they first launched the site, and I took screenshots of the original because I did a video about it, to few. They changed everything from specifics to few, you know, for plausible deniability. Because if you had, you know, if you were affected by Heathrow in a bad way and you had 4 or 5 days without power and you've only prepped 3 days because that's what they told you to, guess what? I'm going to find a no win, no fee, blah, blah, blah. So they're covering their own backs with that one. That's why they did it. Do you think they'll go that step further and put the pamphlet out? Everyone, it seems to be spreading because we started, you know, over the Eastern Bloc and people are putting these pamphlets out, and then it was Germany, now it's France. You know, it's just a little stone hop over the channel. Are we going to follow suit?
People don't want to know. I mean, that's. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but since I started my channel and you started yours, if I'm at work or I'm talking to people in the street. That thing that they brought out, the 72 hours, was a fantastic talking point to mention to people, did you see that? And 9 times out of 10, nobody'd seen it. They knew nothing about it. And after the initial furore was over a couple of days, it was largely forgotten about. So people don't want to know. There was no pressure. It was a junior deputy minister, deputy prime minister, put it out.
Is that not the reason to put leaflets out? Because, I mean, granted, it might get mixed up with the pizza leaflets, but, you know, if they do it right and they envelope it right and they put it out right, is that not more of a reality check that coming through the door than a segment that you might have missed on TV?
Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to come across that I think we shouldn't do it. I think we should do it. I'm all for it. We should be publicising it more. Sure, I'd put it in the advert in the local papers and the TV every week.
Yeah.
But like it or not, the UK, we need to spoon feed. So say to people, right, here you go. Here's the list. Here's an Amazon link. We've negotiated a 30% discount with Amazon. Click that and we'll post a lot to you, right? Or, and I was going to say something stupid there. If you're on benefits, you'll get it given to you, right? To keep in the house. If that happened, you'd probably see the faking things in Facebook Marketplace the next day.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Yeah. People will be selling like their emergency packs that they got.
Yeah. If they were going to do it, let's stop pissing about. Make it mandatory, right? Like smoke alarms, you've got to have them, right? You should have it. There should be a national push on it. If they're going to put out a leaflet, let's stop fucking about and say, right, yeah, here's the leaflet. You've got to have it. Here's where you can buy it. Here's where you get discounts for it. You've got 6 months to do it. Stop pissing about. Let's just do it.
It doesn't take, I mean, we've got food banks across the entire nation, right? They could put a 72-hour pack together for people that couldn't afford it to go and collect it. And it's going to get abused, like you say, at some point, you know, if you do that system. But I surely, I mean, regardless of making it compulsory, I think they would struggle to enforce it, basically, you know, because they ain't going to go door to door and check your cupboards and what have you. But I think the awareness definitely needs to get out there. It's a good question, and it's something that I'd love to know the answer to, but that's what we think. That's what we think. Will they, though? Will they, or do you think that would cause a panic?
Here's the question that you're going to ask. Okay, we think you should have this at home. Oh no, why? Because it's a fair question to ask, right? Fear warmer. You're saying we should have this. Does that mean there's a war coming? Does that mean we're going to be sitting in the dark? There'll be awkward questions asked that they don't want to know. They don't want to answer, right? They'll be put in a spot. It's not in their interest to, I'm not saying promote fear, but let people take a bit of responsibility for problems that may come.
But I mean, they've already crossed that bridge, right? With the emergency alarm things on the phone and doing the tests for that. So they've already crossed that bridge, right? So, I mean, it's not going to cause all that much fear if they produce it right. Like, I think it was the Lithuanian one I went through, and that was just targeted in general at all sorts of scenarios. Could be a flood, could be a power cut, could be a natural disaster. It doesn't have to be Ruskies are at the door or the Chinese are coming through the streets or totally whatever your enemy is. It doesn't have to be any of that. The Americans are invading. It doesn't have to be any of the above. It could be like, you know, oh, the power lines went down up on the moors and that's affected your house for a week.
I'm all for it. And I'm all for it to the point I think there should be, let's say you own Asda, right? And we've got 65 million people in the UK.
Can I own Waitrose?
And you say to Asda, right, we're going to give you carte blanche to make these kits up for people, right? But you've got to do it at a reduced price and you can be a sole supplier, right? But you've got to run and administer it. They would bite your hand off.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not hard to do.
I think I could do it. Like you see 72-hour emergency bags like on Amazon, they're charging like £100 to £200 for these things, right? And they're ridiculous. And half the crap in there you're never going to use, right? I think I could put together what they suggest as a pack and sell it for 20, 30 quid. Me just going to retail and putting it together.
I'd actually got quotes and stuff for a shipping container to get it done last year when it came out, the 72-hour thing. And it would have cost me about $6,000 to buy the stuff, including the bags. They would even put a Scottish Prepper patch on it for me, on the backpacks, and make them up. And the unit cost to do it was about...
Just a little head peeking behind a pie. That's the logo.
With a can of Pepsi in a hand. And it was working out about 16 quid. Now, again, it was coming from AliExpress, so there'll be bits in it in the kit that you could say that would be a bit shit and all the rest of it. But it would have been a functional starter kit that you could chop and change the bits that were of questionable quality.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're talking about what they're suggesting, when we're talking about 3 days worth of food, 3 days worth of water, a cheap camping stove, what have you, torch, candles, etc., You could put that together from local shops. You wouldn't even have to order shipping containers. I mean, I reckon I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it as a video. I'm going to see how little.
Cheaper.
I'm going to see how cheap I can put this together. That's what I'm going to do for a video. And I might publish the video, or I might think I'm going to make some money and sell them on for a double the price. But I'm going to film me doing it anyway. But I do reckon you could get it cheaper to do that. We've gone completely.
It wasn't worth the hassle in the end up. By the time you stored it and the time taken to make up the kits and the profit margin to keep it reasonable,
the demand's not there. This is the problem you're always going to have. You'd have to this fictional Asda approach would have to be done based on the government saying, because we're going to issue this leaflet next week and make it like people have to. You'd have to have the demand there to do it. Stop funding Ukraine, says XP. I'm just going to rattle off some of these quickly. Conscription, bring it back, says Sambo. 100%. Ooh. Let's touch on this. I had a bit of a rant on this on a charge time rant. Conscription. Do you see that working right now?
No.
The way the generations are coming through and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. There's still people volunteering for the army. There's still young lads joining up that go through it, and the cracking lads, no problems. But when you suddenly talk about conscription, they're going to have to give you that list of excuses, right? Just like World War II, flat feet, you can't go, etc. They're going to give you that list. And that's not just going to be a physical disability like flat feet. That's going to be everything. So suddenly 99.8% of the population that's of conscription age is going to run to their GP and get a sick note for anxiety. You know,
mate, I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. My son, my only son, he's 23.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want him to go and fighting a bullshit conflict that's got nothing to do with us, or may become something to do with us. So I'm certainly not going to say, yeah, we should bring in conscription and somebody else's kids should go and do it when my own kids are at an age that they could be sent. And that's the last thing I want for them. Yeah. I think the reason that we're talking about conscription is because the shit state the military's been left in and making it an unpalatable career choice for people. If we make it a worthwhile profession again, where they've got decent pensions again, decent married quarters again, then we won't need conscription because you'll have a professional army. Conscription, in my mind, would only be in time of crisis when the wolf's at the door and we have to do it. Well, we're not quite there yet, so why not just have a professional army and pay them appropriately? That's my thoughts, mate.
Yeah. Dean says preparedness is our own problem and responsibility, which I agree with, but the more people prepare, the less we have to save, so we want to encourage it. Mohammed says living in an aging household, we're always prepared for over 50 years. Funny. Basically have our own cash and carry it home. It's funny, but it's good. I mean, it's good. It's a good culture to have. I was actually talking about this with the missus the other day, because a few friends of mine are the same, and they have like all the stuff they need for 5 years in the house, and they cook on bulk and they feed everyone, and the community is absolutely brilliant, and it just feels like we've lost all that community everywhere else. Frog Dad, I'm a Yank, lived in London for 2 years, blessed to be there during Queen's Golden Jubilee. I don't want UK to go to the movie Threads route. Please wake up across the pond. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Threads, I don't think it'll be Threads. I don't think it'll be quite be that bad, but it's the knock-on effects we'll get, right?
The problem is, what do you do, right? I appreciate his comments and he's right in a lot of ways, but wake up in what way? Does that mean that we invest more money in the military? I fundamentally agree we should. Totally do. But on paper, we still meet the NATO minimum. We're actually higher than the minimum. It's not us that are the big problem in the Western Alliance. It's a lot of our peers in Europe. So one good thing Trump has done is shake the tree and get people to be a bit more responsible for their own defence. So I agree with that. That's a good positive thing. But we still have one of two independent nuclear deterrents in the Western Hemisphere. So we do our part. We've just got a shit conventional army at the moment.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Mike?
Sorry, Chris 82 said what Brian is talking about. I've been looking at this for the past few years. Difficult to get off the ground. I think he's talking about the survival pack things as well. What do I think about what?
I've lost my train of thought there. Right, aye. So funding, right? So Europe is getting a fund of 150 billion that they can dip into for defence to bolster the defences. Loans, right? But because we're not part of the European Union, we don't get anything.
Yeah.
But these are the same people that are saying, well, actually, France and the UK have got a nuclear deterrent. We could be part of that and shelter under their umbrella. Well, how about fuck off? Because we pay for that, right? If that's how it's going to be, and you'll shelter under the UK's nuclear umbrella and France's, then surely we should get some form of kickback for that in terms of money to bolster our own conventional forces.
Yeah,
there's got to be a bit of come and go here. What do you think?
I just don't think we'll get any sort of funding in that aspect. Anyway, there's this. It's just what I think is we're completely lost.
I think that's a fair point, mate.
I was reading the comments, and like people are the same. Horace Rumpole says, "How about making people responsible for themselves instead of wanting Big Brother government to look after them? Independence and freedom for me."
Yeah, you're right, but they don't. But you're right. But surely that's why we're here tonight, trying to promote that.
Yeah, definitely. Amphia had a good suggestion. They could call the British Survival Manual the Storm Shadow Directive.
I like that.
What about these chemicals found in a house last week? 55 people evacuated. I saw something brief on that.
I don't know that one, I'm afraid. I can't comment.
Be right back. Just going to kick my husband out for being nosy. No, you want him involved. You want him involved.
Bring him in.
Yeah, that's it. Bring him in. Tesco said in 2008, UK population is 10 million higher than UK Gov figures. They checked with all other leading supermarket chains. Yeah, the figures are probably way out, right? That's always been the case. Yeah. They would also need to include the British umbrella, which can protect up to 5 megaton Airbus into the survival kit. Everyone gets a
point.
Trident in a suitcase.
I mean, the basics aren't going to be that hard for people to afford. That. I mean, I've done a video on it. You did a video on it as well at the time. Mm-hmm. It can be relatively cheap.
Yeah, I kind of did a piss take video on it though.
I mean, I'd laid it out in what it actually looked like in terms of food for one person in tins, rat packs, and everything else. And you can do it. You can do it relatively cheap. And what kind of? Please don't take offence to this, folks, but if you get somebody who's walking to Tesco smoking their tits off, right, and they can't afford to buy an extra couple of tins of beans, can I suggest you ditch the fags?
Shocking. Shocking. You preachy bastard. Get off. He says with his Pepsi addiction. Shocking.
I can stop anytime I want, Mike.
The Yanks objected to bases in Cuba, same as Russian objecting to bases in Ukraine. I've seen
what bases would that be?
Times. You know, well, I think they're talking about like if they became part of NATO. I think that's where that's coming from. But I mean, there could be conditional where they don't put bases in there, I suppose. I mean, right? But I mean, they've got bases close enough to fly jets out there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got the right to determine their own security conditions and what shape that takes, but there's not been any Western nuclear weapons in Europe for a long time. Although that's changing now.
So, two things I want to ask about, and please feel free to get your input in the chat on this as well, if you know more than I know, because we're here to learn just as much as you. We are not the fonts of all knowledge. We are just weathermen reading the news. But two things are not in the news as much. Like if you go to the mainstream media, and the whole situation in Gaza has actually gone like even more so, like the worst strikes since it started, since the original ceasefires and stuff like that. And obviously Yemen getting involved, and now Iran that you go to Iran's Twitter page, and they are literally, their Iran military's own Twitter is saying that the Americans are now sending extra carriers because they've been attacking the Yemen's been attacking the carrier and stuff like that. But it's not in the mainstream media. It's like it's getting, whatever's the key talking point, that's gone. So that's not there. We're not talking about it, even though it's all started kicking off again completely. The whole ceasefire hostages back has gone completely out the window, and it's all been steamrolled. And then also, I feel like China is very quiet at the moment, because I think the match for the powder keg for the actual World War III capital letters is Taiwan. I genuinely believe that would be the kickoff point, because that would bring China into a conflict that is directly against aspects that have links to the West, and their allies in that would be Russia, and they are a force to be reckoned with, I'm afraid, China. So why is both of these just completely out of all these conversations, all these channels, all these World War III updates on Canadian Prepper, stuff like that? Why is it not being mentioned on any of them?
I think it depends on the narrative of the time, who suits in the popular agenda. The Iranian one, did you see? Although they've denied it, the Iranians had an intelligence ship, gathering ship, and it was floating about, gathering, targeting information and giving it to the Yemenis. Apparently the Americans sank it last week. So, but they've denied it sunk, and the Americans are saying they sunk it. So I think they're in line to take a smacking at some point, the Iranians, whether they like it or not, given the guy that's in charge now, because he really, really does not have a warm, fuzzy spot for them.
But they've just started construction on 2 new nuclear plants with the help of the Russians.
That's interesting.
So there's 2 Iranian nuclear plants for power, of course, for power generation, but the Russians are involved in helping them get that off the ground.
If the Israelis think there's an existential threat there at all, they'll just hit them.
Yeah.
They've proven it for decades. If they believe there's a tangible threat, a nuclear weapon close to being developed, they'll smack them.
But I mean, that's already there. I mean, we've probably got more evidence of that than we had for weapons of mass destruction with Saddam.
I think, given all the stuff that Iran's given to Russia, there must have been some exchange. There must have been something passed back their way that they really, really want. Take a guess what that could be.
Yeah.
It was in Iran, you're right. Start of threads.
Was it? I was trying to think. I couldn't remember the start scene for that.
What happened was the Americans deployed troops, ironically, to guard parts of Iran, and there was a nuclear detonation at Mashhad Air Base. That was part of the film. The kind of theatre building up.
Yeah. It may sound harsh, but I have at least a dozen people still in different services, and I don't want them to end up dead in Ukraine. No, it's not harsh at all.
It's not harsh at all. No,
it's not.
You're
not
right.
Harsh, no. And the Survivor said it's proxy wars. Click that virus. Last time leaflets went out in the UK, big TV build-up and threads was shown on the BBC. Protect and Survive leaflets went through every letterbox, and they all ended up in the bin, and that was in the 80s. Surely, I mean, it's quite to say they all ended up in the bin. I assume it would have started a few people. Some people would have took notice of it, right?
I think looking back with a certain sense of irony, the information that they put out was more or less worthless. Paint your windows white, take your doors off and pile some mattresses on top of them. No problem. Forget your bunker. I've got a B&Q door that will save me from a 30-kiloton nuclear warhead a mile away.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well worthwhile. Thanks very much for that. There's things you can prep for and things there's just no bloody point. And in the nuclear front, I've always been the view of there's no point. For me, there's no point.
Yeah. It's hopefully see it coming and get the F out of there and get somewhere safe is probably the thing. Unless, we hit the Euro Millions, then we'll both be safe in our huge bunkers. Mehdi says if Iran is attacked, it will get Russia involved. Russia and Iran have just renewed their strategic security agreement. Russia will get involved. This is the problem. I mean, how the hell are these negotiations worked?
But will they though? Let's spin that round on its head. So you've got Trump cozying up to Russia, and they want to do strategic partnerships. They've come out and said it. So if they're willing to horse trade Ukraine and carve off large swaths of territory and get that rubber stamped, what's the more beneficial partnership for Russia? To be in cahoots with the US and have more money and revenue going that way, or to sell Iran down the river? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, you say it like that, it does make sense that way. The invasion barges have been mentioned recently for Taiwan, but China news is quiet. They're building up their forces in the background. Reason why Trump wants Gen 6 planes is due. This is what I think. I genuinely think that, because everyone sees the clips of Boston Robotics and stuff like that, and like the dog that they're going to use for, the little robot dog that can go and do field exercise and stuff like that. China's got them, and they've not got one or two like Boston are testing with. They've got hundreds of them in mass production, and they're getting produced at a fraction of the cost that the American ones are. They might not be as reliable. A leg might fall off if it's from Temu, as you do, but they've still got the quantities and the technology and the know-how there.
For me, the Taiwan situation, there's only so much water between Taiwan and China.
Mm-hmm.
Once they get there, it'll be very, very difficult to get them out without massive loss of life. Now, you've got 10, 11 functional carrier strike groups, and not all of them in service at any one time in the US. The Chinese are just putting their third carrier into service now, but they've got short logistic routes. They've got their landmass there. They're fighting in home turf.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be very hard to project enough force out to that distance without massive loss of life. For what gain? After the saber rattling's got done and the sanctions are in place and all the rest of it, if they actually get bodies on there, I don't think you're going to get them out.
But are the United States prepping for it? Because gold's past $3,000, which apparently is the whole doomsday clock thing, right? It's past $3,000, the end of all things. But they've started recalling a lot of gold, and the UK can't send it quick enough, sort of thing. Are they prepping for? Because if China and Russia to kind of tip that scales and not have the economy based around the US dollar, and is that not going to be the whole fighting point around this?
Well, the petrodollar's been pretty much the only kid in town for decades. I don't see that changing anytime soon, even with this thing with Ukraine and Russia being on the last 3 years and try to change the different currencies and the perfect time to do it. It never happened. It still never happened. I just don't see. I mean, interestingly enough, when Trump did one of his latest interviews last week, the week before, he had one of the largest semiconductor plant owners in the US in the Oval Office talking about how many billions they're going to spend and investing in massive semiconductor plants in the US. Now, if they're investing in building the semiconductor plants in the US, why would they defend them in Taiwan?
Yeah.
If you've got them there in your home turf.
So do you think it's cutting that tie so they don't have to jump to the Taiwanese defense and that's another country that gets written off?
From a pound, shilling and pence point of view, when you're looking at expending blood and treasure, it kind of makes sense. Why would you send thousands and thousands of sailors and airmen over there and Marines to try and fight at the end of your logistics chain against somebody with a home turf advantage for essentially semiconductor plants that you're now talking about building on your own home turf? It doesn't seem a good way to spend resources and material.
So the fact they're doing this, is this not a giant green flag for China to just go, right, now's the time?
I think reading the room, they're going to do it within the next 3 to 4 years anyway, one way or another.
I think that's a conservative time estimate, but yeah. Where I am, I see a lot of Navy ships coming in and out. British are working very closely with the Netherlands fleet. Yeah, I'm fully expected all part of this European force. Mohammed said Iran already has ballistic missiles who have given it to Yemen without a nuclear head. It is possible Iran has nuclear or is close to achieving nuclear weapons. Yeah, I think it was like at 60 something % enrichment, I believe.
I think they've got them.
Yeah.
I think they've got them, genuinely. I think they've got them. Whether they got them from Russia and plausibly deniability, they say they've got it for the North Koreans or whatever. I think they've got them, mate.
Right. Probably talk about this. Let's get on to prepping. Elusive Dartmoor, what is your best prep for war if it happens? Interesting one. Just saying prep for war because it depends how much it has effect on us, right? But what specific? Let's take out the core. The core, we always say the core of prepping is the same: water, food, power, etc. Is there anything specific to prepare if, let's say, Starmug decides, right, that's it, I'm sending 30,000, troops and half-trained kids over to Ukraine? What extra preps would people do? How would you prep for that in this country?
Well, if you take out pretty much everything that I would prep for anyway in terms of power, food and everything else, that only leaves one thing left to prep, which would be your family, and make sure they know what to expect and what the game plan is.
Yeah, I would say it's similar to that, as well as community. We've built a great community here and on Discord, but I want to see that become more of a tactile reality for me and creates more of a mag that is actually physically, listen, if this all hits the fan, we can meet up, we can centralize at this point. So building a community is key. Problem for US is they can afford to fight a war on 3 fronts with Ukraine, Gaza, and Taiwan.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
What their force posture used to be that they had enough men and material to fight 2 major conflicts at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah. It's I don't think they'd want to. That's the thing, right?
Nobody should want to.
No.
Nobody should want
to. Sorry, I'm just having a look through some of the comments so I don't miss anything. There's some really good comments in there, guys. I can't get to them. We've hit 100 likes, which I really appreciate. 178 people in here. While I'm just catching up with the comments, don't forget, go and check out Scottish Prepper 73, Brian's channel. Make sure you subscribe to him as well as subscribed here.
Fun fact, while everybody's on, Billy O'Sheds that I just bought from, don't buy one there. It's absolute shite. I've done a lot of work to get it fixed. Just going to put that out there.
You could do a whole video on that and explain the dilemma with that.
I will do. I've got little snapshots of it and bits I've been putting up already. It basically involves me shouting and swearing for a week. That's pretty much how it goes.
I'm just starring some of your questions, guys, so don't worry, I'm not missing them, and we'll try and quick fire through them to get to an end. We've got a $19.11 super chat. Thank you very much. I'm not sure what that translates to in our money, but I really appreciate it either way. Greetings from West Texas, USA. I don't know who you guys are, but this live stream showed up in my suggested feed, and there's a ton of survivalists over here. Yes, yeah, more than welcome over here. And we actually have an American participant on our firesides as well. Every so often, Ration Nerd comes in to give his 2 cents, which is great. So we are international.
Do you know who needs to come on? Kelly.
I don't know if it's difficult when people are not on YouTube already, because whether they want to come on and show their face and stuff like that.
Kelly.
Oh, Monkey Wrench. Yeah. Well, I've not seen him for a while. I'll have to catch up with him. We just had a real SHTF real situation when the tornadoes went by last week. We found some weaknesses like comfortable chairs after several hours in the basement. Yeah, this is it. You don't realize it's all right having a prep room or a basement or a cellar and stuff like that, and you've got all your food in there. but spending any length of time in there, comfort, entertainment, and sanitation have to be three of the massive things you consider, which a lot of people don't. They just think wall-to-wall beans and I'm good. Bullets and beans, that's all we need.
But not in the UK, obviously.
Not in the UK, of course, no. Bolts and beans. Looking to add nuclear Geiger tube dosimeter into a remote mesh-tastic telemetry pack.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Will keep us informed with that one, Amphia. That sounds really cool. I'm going to go back now because I've started a few of these questions and let's try and rattle through a few. Kelly's Eye said, how many people know where their safe areas of the UK are, referring to a nuke attack? Difficult one, because it depends on your school of thought on this, Brian, in my opinion, because if it's a terrorist action, it's population centers, right? If it's country versus country, it's going to be infrastructure and tactical, right? And military installations. So is there a safe area? I mean, everyone talks about bugging out to the Highlands with no idea what it'd be like to live there for more than a few days in the wild. But
we don't have the landmass. I'm really sorry to burst people's bubbles, and this is my personal opinion. We fundamentally don't have the landmass.
Naughty said safer, not safe, safer.
Safer would be the northwest of Wales, right, or the northwest of Scotland. Yeah, there's the targeting list that was declassified for the 90s for the old Soviet Union basically was command and control centres, and the list would go command and control centres, logistics hubs, train marshalling yards, airports. Right, and interestingly, any major road that could be made into an improvised airstrip, right? So large stretches of motorway, they would be zapped.
Straight, yeah.
Yep. Industrial hubs and like bridges and transport networks and hubs, and then it was population centres, and then you've got to take into effect prevailing winds as well. In a major nuclear exchange, we're all going to fucking die. I'm really sorry, but that is a simple fact that nobody wants to accept.
Unless you've dug a bunker and you've prepared it to that level, then yeah.
Aye. But for people on a working wage, this is just my opinion. Feel free to shoot me down. It's something that I don't prep for, not because I don't want to. I just don't have the resources. If I had the money that it would take, of course I would build a bunker. Of course I would. And some people would say it's a waste of money. It would make me happy to do it, but I would move from where I live now to a different location for a start.
Yeah. I mean, bunker is obviously, get me to 1 million subscribers and I'll build one. But a bunker would be great, don't get me wrong. And living in the middle of nowhere, it'd be great. And I do want some land that's away from population centers, not so much for this scenario, for a nuke attack, but for like civil unrest and stuff like that. I'd rather be a bit more rural than I am now. So I am looking at that. That's what the move is going to be this year anyway. But for me, I think more cost effective and potentially a get out is a boat. A decent enough boat that is moored somewhere that could get to sea quick enough, right? Because hopefully we'd have some sort of warning this would be going on and I would just go out to sea, fully loaded as much as I can, and I think I'd have a chance more surviving out to sea and trying to find somewhere that's not glowing than
West Coast
digging
of
a
Ireland.
hole. Well, just dig
Southwest Ireland.
Anything, but even if it's further out and I just end up floating for a while till I can come back and people are less luminous. But I just feel like that could be a better prep than trying to build a bunker in this country.
It probably would be, but your problem would be you'd need to watch the winds and take that into account, because all that shit in the air, you could end up sailing.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if you've got a sailboat.
Yeah, there's all sorts of factors, but the chance is safer, and I'm one of those that couldn't just sit there and go, right, time to go. I would have to give it a try. I'd rather get crisped running to my boat or getting the mooring off than just sat there waiting for it. I need to do something up until that point.
I would love to, and this kind of follows on to Kelly I's follow-up question. Have I mapped out and looked to the little nuclear predictors of what would happen? I live in the central belt of Scotland. I'm between two international airports. I also live 30 miles from the national nuclear deterrent and where they store all the nuclear weapons in Coalport. There's no way on this planet, even if they hit exactly where they're supposed to, that I'm going to be anything other than crisp, right? So
I mean, it's all theoretical, right? Because you can use that nuke map, and it could be low yield that they use. It could be targeted. It doesn't necessarily have to spread that far. We could be completely fine, and it's fallout we've got to worry about, technically.
So you've got, even though the refinery's shutting at Grangemouth, that's about 18 miles from me, that would get hit. They would hit the Forth Road bridges. They would also hit Glasgow. They would hit Edinburgh.
You wouldn't notice the difference with Glasgow, though, let's be fair.
It might improve some of the city landscape, to be fair. So I think I'd like to prepare for everything up to that. And I think everybody can prepare for anything up to that event, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Well, I will prepare beyond that event, and the boat would be the one for that one. Thanks for the question. Much appreciated. Is anyone using World War II as a metric for war preparedness? No, purely because I don't think it would be that kind of war. The only similarities I would say is preparing for the knock-on effect. I don't think we're the same nation that we were then. People and community and stuff like that, but things like Dig for Victory, the campaigns, and Make Do and Mend and stuff like that, we can learn a lot as preppers from that generation, from that era, and from what they did through that. But physically preparing the shelters, no point buying an old World War II shelter, pointless, would not. So all you're doing is burying yourself and your family. You're just creating your own grave at that point.
The old Anderson shelters. The metrics I would take from it would be the blackouts, the restricted rations, food shortages, power shortages. There's things that you would take from it, but there should be your general go-to preps anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be blackout through power infrastructure attacks, right, and cyber attacks, rather than let's turn our lights out because there's bombers flying overhead, because that's just not warfare that's done anymore. Or it wouldn't be how we were targeted. I wouldn't think anyway. So. Cheers the question. Good question. There were 152 unprecedented, i.e. the worst ever extreme weather events in 2024. Could the biggest risk be weather, not war? Yes, because war is what we talk about because it's what's happening right now. And it's a hot topic. The fact that there's 170 of you being in here for an hour and a half, and me and Brian are both looking at our watches thinking, I need to go soon. Says it's a hot topic. If we were on here talking about how much rain fell last week, we'd have 20 people in here. So it is what it is. But yeah, definitely. The weather extremes. Look at the storms we've had recently, Brian, and how much people have been knocked out of power. That is the reason to prep, right? That is how you sell prepping to people.
It should be. And you would like to think, look at all the people last year with Thames Water. I mean, you'd 40,000 people for about 6 weeks had no running water.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had loads of power events last year. We'd one at the start of this year that nearly caused a blackout. So I would say that the preps for bad weather, the preps for potential conflicts, cyber attacks or anything, they're more or less going to be the same. Good preps are good preps regardless of what goes horribly wrong. So what we can talk about different events, but 99% of your preps for these things will be the same, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it comes down to that core of prepping again, which we always bang the drum of. Any thoughts on the next national emergencies that will seriously affect people's lives, i.e. war, civil war, etc.? Civil war comes up a lot. We're going to talk about civil war on another Fireside, all right? So I'm going to leave that one because we're going to talk about it in a way we can talk about it without absolutely sending alarm bells off and having, stormtroopers knocking down our door. So leave the civil war side of things. But Brian, do you think anything on the horizon that people should be looking at most at the moment when it comes to stuff like that will seriously affect people's lives?
There's so many balls up in the air at the moment. I would struggle to pick one that's most likely to happen. We've got cyber attacks. We've got infrastructure attacks in this country. Now, we've got an unreliable power grid. We've got a disjointed power grid. We've had bad weather events. We've had flooding, right? Take your pick out of all of them because they've all actually happened. So it's not like something that could happen. All of this shit's happened in a short space of time. Shit, we've had a pandemic we were talking about at the start of the show. Everything that we talk about now has happened within the last 4 or 5 years. So it'll probably happen again. But again, we've just said 2 minutes ago, all your generic preps that we always bang on about, like Mike rightly said, they're going to be the same. They're going to be the same. If you get a good core prep set up, you'll be good for most things.
Yeah. Kelly's eye said power cuts, and I'd tend to agree with him, only because, like we talk about with the core preps, I think the threat to our power and our infrastructure is there without anybody else, right? It's because it's degraded, it's out of date. We're trying to do this net zero thing. We're doing it all badly. We're threatening our own power supply without then other people threatening it. We're importing more than we ever have imported before in energy. And we're relying on countries that are also unstable politically and stuff like that. So we're relying on power that we potentially won't be able to get at some point. And at some point, I think power cuts would be it, whether it's scheduled or whether it's random, unscheduled. Should be a massive thing you prepare for, and it will affect a lot of people. It already has done. Look at literally what's just happened to 67,000 people. Storage Mouse became a YouTube member. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would agree with the power cut one, and I do agree with it. And in the last 2 years, I've spent 20 grand on solar and batteries for the house, and at least an R6 and power banks and a generator. So that gives you an idea of where my priorities and threat axis is.
Yeah. And I've got the same amount of candles as he's got generators. So Sharon says fresh fruit and veg worth growing, owned, stocking dried, frozen ones. Farmers are really livid at the moment. Again, see, another thing that has been massive all over the news and then suddenly disappeared. They're suddenly not happy, all these farmers. It's all still happening, but it's just not getting reported. It's not getting the media coverage now. Yet that food supply that was under threat and every channel was banging on about it is still under threat right now, right?
Oh, see, on that note about food and things and shortages, I meant to mention this to you the other day in the group chat. I was listening to a country music radio channel while I was building the shed, and they were actually driving to different
locations. His full hillbilly there.
Yeah, bitches. And they were driving to different locations in the States and giving away chickens and eggs because of an egg shortage. And I'm like, really? It's that bad? I was astounded. I couldn't believe it.
No, I mean, I've seen a lot of empty shelves over the last few weeks at supermarkets. I don't know. Let us know if you've noticed the same in the comments. And I've seen pictures of signs saying that there's shortages of chicken in some places and stuff like that because of it. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah, there's definitely not an abundance floating about at the moment.
Billy Bob Bryan, thanks, Polonium.
Russia knows the UK policy to destroy Moscow, so EMP is more likely than a direct hit on the UK. Ooh. Well, we've already done the whole scenario for that, so we've told you how to survive. Come to Brian's Mountain, Mike's Farm, or Dave's Underground Kingdom. That's what you need to do.
Just for the record,
my nan beats on the candles, so I'll take that bet.
Dave would probably eat you.
The food comes to him. It's fine. Yeah, same. Someone said, Callie said, same. So, strangely, no jam in some places. No jam. Interesting. I mean, I don't get jam. I get imitation, fake, cheap, it once saw a strawberry and then it became jam, kind of chemical jam that's 20p. So if there is to be a war, more than likely it'll be asymmetrical warfare. Think attack on power grids, electronic banking, supply chain interruptions. Yes, definitely.
Totally
Thank
agree.
you for the $10.22 super chat. These are so random, these numbers. It's great. But really appreciate the super chat. And yeah, I do agree that we have become this nation so reliant on technology, not nation, planet reliant on this technology. You see anyone glued to the phones. How do you collapse that civilization? How do you affect that most? Take away that infrastructure. And the biggest threat to us then is not an invading force, is ourselves.
It's one another, yeah.
It's people. People will go nuts without it. Honestly, it is each other. That we are the issue. We're prepping against each other, unfortunately. Might get a lot of solar power for it. I wonder what your numbers would go up to, Brian, for a moment just before that disappears.
Before the
wow,
big suntan.
Look at this. Have you seen the Terminator scene where it's the skeleton holding the fence? That's Brian, and he's looking at the last number of gigawatts he was getting just before it happened.
I mean, the export rate's shit. See if people think you're getting a lot of money out of solar, it's not very good.
Anything's better than nothing, though, right? In this economy. What about cyber attack? That is supposed to me like COVID virus for computers. Well, you know, it's always going to be the case. Cybersecurity is always going to be an issue. For keeping you up late, thank you, Polonium. Really appreciate the donation. Thank you there. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to call it because it is late. Everyone, really do appreciate you being in here and all the super chats. Cyber attacks, Brian, just lastly, before we go off, because somebody mentioned it. It's happening, right? It's happening right now. It's happening as
daily.
We speak. It's happening to me, right? Which I'm not like saying like I'm targeted, like, you know, woe was me. Look, there's a helicopter looking at me. It must be after me. I'm not saying anything like that.
Oh, you bitch.
I'm just saying, it's like, you know, our funky friend who thinks MI5's watching every one of his streams. It's anything. They will go for anything. I've had cyber attacks on the servers that I use for websites more in the last month than I've had for 10 years that they've been running. Right? They're not picky. They're attacking everything. And these are just the amateurs and the rank amateurs and the people trying to get money out of it. I'm surprised we've not had a major attack on infrastructure as it is with the cyber attacks.
We have. It's just not all of them been successful or publicized.
Yeah, successful, I would say. Like the Channel 4 thing, Blackout, that was based on a cyber attack, taking down the power grid, right?
If they're nibbling at infrastructure, like what our American friend put on earlier, their assertion for the next World War III would be asymmetrical attacks. That would be an out-and-out attack, which would invite a similar response, right? Mm-hmm. But at the moment, they're nibbling at the sidelines. If they wanted to take down the grid, there'd be methods and ways to do it. They could do it. And we could do the same in return. Mm-hmm. But we're not there yet. We're just nibbling and taking little snapshots. We're shutting down BA's website for a day. We're taking the banks down one at a time for a day or two at a time. This has all happened. Mm-hmm. And it will keep happening. We're just getting a few warning shots that this could happen. And don't get me wrong, we're probably doing the same to them.
Funnily enough, like looking at jobs on the jobs market, there is a lot more now for cybersecurity and MOD-based cybersecurity and ethical hackers. So it feels like we're teeing up for that. Mm-hmm. Right. I think we'll call that because people are just having their own conversations as they usually do anyway.
Quite right.
The Bohemia Interactive Gaming Company got held to ransom almost a week by pro-Russian hackers. They wanted about 80k to stop. Yeah. The company I work for mention no names. They had a cyber incident, and it was a similar sort of thing. Was held to ransom, not for as much as that, but it happened. Scary times. Dios, beware of your neighbours in a without rule of law SHTF situation. They're more of a credible threat than the government is, 100%, and it's the more immediate threat. They might be nice as pie during peace times, but starve them for a week and watch how friendly they do not become.
They'll cut your throat for a packet of fish fingers.
Yeah, 163 people in here. Brian, do you want to tell them about your channel really quickly?
I do a lot of reviews on kit that I like, kit that I want to try out, rations that I've bought, things that I stock, how I like to prep, news articles that interest me that could become a future threat or something that we need to be aware of now, in my opinion. My videos have been slow of late because I'm just too busy at work, and I'm trying to build a new workshop to store a lot of my preps. So hopefully, aspirationally, I'll get some more content out soon, but I really just don't have a lot of time.
Well, there you go. So go and subscribe, because eventually he'll put something on there. That's the gist of that. So are we on the right thing? No, let's I'll tell you what I will do. Miss Worm is our awesome moderator. She has her own channel. We do have a video advert that we sometimes play, but not on this one at the moment. But what I will say is she's also a published author. Check that out. That is her book that you can go and get on Amazon. So support her. She supports this channel, off her own back, without asking for anything at all. So we love to support her where you can. So go and check the book out. Maybe give it a buy, give it a read, and have a look at that one. So that would be cool. Thank you, Miss Worm, for everything you do. And yeah, that's about it from us. So would you like to say goodbye to the masses, Brian?
Goodbye to the masses. Really good questions tonight. Good active flow in the chat. And nice to see a few of our friends from across the pond and get some different perspectives. So yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah. From me, really appreciate you all being here as much as you can. I appreciate all the super stickers, one there from Random Warrior just at the end, all the donations. It all really does help. What helps more than that is you guys sharing the content, getting it out there, and getting more people to come and join us in these chats, and getting more people on board with the prepping in general, building the community, and that is key. So make sure you go and subscribe to Brian's channel, Miss Worm's channel, and all the people in there as well. And we will see you all in the next one really soon. I'm stalling while I try and find the button. There it is. Goodbye.
Later, guys.
Round the fire, warm and bright, stocked up food for the night. Got our plans set in gold for the days when it's cold. Tools and gear stacked up high in the cabin we reside, listening to the winds howl, prepping for the morning's prowl. At the Prepper's fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. Water stored in jugs and tins, bunkered down through thick and thin. Maps and routes all drawn and laid, preppers live unafraid. At the Prepper's fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. In the glow of embers dance, we've prepared for every chance, living simple, living true, with the dream we all pursue. first dance, we've prepared for every chance, living simple, living true, with the dream we all pursue.